Is it okay to send your kid to a sleepover? I currently tend to meet about 3 different types of parents when it comes to this debate. There's the group of parents who are just eliminating sleepovers completely. There's the second group of parents who are just super happy to have a night off from parenting without having to pay for a babysitter. And the third group of parents are aware of the concerns around sleepovers, but they just don't know how to proceed. Now, if you are in that third group as a parent and you are ambivalent on sleepovers, then this video is for you. I know the feeling. I was just like you, and I was unsure if I was okay with my kids going to sleepovers. I'm going to share with you 5 boundaries that I set up for myself and my family, and you can actually put in place today and decide if your kid is ready for a sleepover tomorrow. Now, talking about sleepovers is not a sex ed topic per se, but it does blur the line because there is a rise in awareness amongst parents around how common, unfortunately, child sexual abuse is. Some CSA survivors are sharing their trauma from having attended sleepovers when they were young, and this is making parents ask, are sleepovers safe for kids? Let's take a look at the stats. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys are victims of CSA in the United States, and 90% of the abusers who commit CSA are not considered a stranger to the child. They are known and oftentimes trusted by the child and their family. With those stats fresh in your mind, saying yes to a sleepover at a friend's house where you've only met the parents maybe once or twice at school pickup kind of sounds crazy. Because do you really know the parents? Do you know if there are other adults that live in that house, or there are other siblings, or who the other kids are that are attending the sleepover? It starts to sound overwhelming, and the easiest thing for many parents to do is to simply pull back and say no, putting in a complete ban on sleepovers altogether. So for parents, that's a boundary that's set, and you simply have to maintain that boundary. But what if you had fond memories of sleepovers when you were a kid? They were moments of joy and happiness and giggles, and you want your kid to also experience that. How can you find balance in setting appropriate boundaries for your child so that they can experience a sleepover safely? I'm going to be honest with you, there is no perfect answer to this question, but I am going to offer you a harm reduction approach just like I do with all the other sex ed topics I talk about. What that means is by implementing the following boundaries, you are reducing the chances of your child becoming a victim of CSA, not eliminating it. Everything on my channel is a harm reduction approach, and if you're new here, here's what I mean. When it comes to explaining what is sex to your kid, you don't just not explain it to them because you don't want them to have sex. You assume that your kid is going to have sex one day. So you are going to provide them with education that lets them know what sex is in a medically accurate and age-appropriate way. Another example would be, you're not going to say, you know what, I don't want my kid to ever see porn. A harm reduction approach means that you're going to say, I know that my kid will see porn one day. So I want to give them the information and education on what porn is, why it's made, and why it's not intended for children to view. This is the approach that I teach parents here on my channel and in Top Talk. I want you to be having these talks with your kids because your kids are going to hear about sex and sexuality and they're going to have questions, and you want them to ask you. Now, the same harm reduction approach can be applied to sleepovers. You can assume that your kid will go to a sleepover one day. Now, that day might be when they're in college. Nevertheless, you want them to be prepared and educated and have the knowledge as well. Now, this one actually is more important than just having the knowledge. You want them to have the skills to be able to protect their sexual health. You know, and I know that in any private home, there are always going to be concerns around what is easily available and what is kids have unmonitored access to. Things like guns, knives, drugs, alcohol, tobacco, the internet, bodies of water like pools when kids are there. Now, I won't be able to focus on all of these concerns, which are valid concerns when you send your kid to another person's home. But instead, I'll be solely focusing on how you can establish boundaries to reduce the potential incidences of child sexual abuse. First up is body safety and sex education. The basic components of this boundary is teaching your child that nobody is allowed to touch their body, including their genitals, and they are not allowed to touch another person's body, including their genitals. When it comes to the body in general, hugs, handshakes, and holding hands must be agreed to beforehand using consent language, but are never required. Now, part of the reason why I'm making this video is because my 6-year-old was invited to a sleepover. And when she received that invitation, I didn't immediately say yes because I wasn't sure. Now, I have been doing body safety education with her since she was about 3 years old. And she is very vocal. She's quick to say you didn't ask if someone tries to give her a hug or a kiss, including myself and her dad. We have consistently talked about how hands do not touch other people's genitals, and other people's hands do not touch her genitals. But since she's only 6 years old, she hasn't had the sex talk yet. To me, this is a key component to body safety education before one attends their first sleepover. Knowing that nobody should ask to kiss your genitals or touch your genitals with their genitals because that's called sex, and only adults have sex with other adults. So that was my first boundary to assessing whether or not my kid was ready for her first sleepover. And since the sex talk has not happened yet, I've come to the conclusion that sleepovers for my 6-year-old are not safe yet. I am planning on having the sex talk with her at some point during the intermediate age, which is coming up, and then we will reassess. And so now if you're planning to have the sex talk with your intermediate or middle school age kid and you are not sure what is age appropriate to say, check out my sex talk starter pack. It gives you the basic script to say to your kid, and it's totally free to download. There's a link to it in the description in the comments below, along with a link to a free lesson of Top Talks if you're interested in checking that out. Now, the next boundary that I recommend to all parents to do is to check the sex offender registry list. This is really an easy thing to do to remind yourself why you are taking all of these precautions. Because seriously, when you input your address with a 1-mile radius, there is someone registered. Do this for the address of the sleepover and just take a look at who's registered in the area. Now, I'm not implying here that you're going to find out that there is a sex offender registered in the home where the sleepover is taking place. But by searching the registry, you are reminding yourself that these stats have real perpetrators behind them. If you're finding this video to be helpful, you know how you can let me know that. Make it blue. Now, the next one is parent-to-parent communication. This is intended to communicate to the parents of the sleepover that you are teaching your child sex education and body safety education. You're simply communicating your concerns around sleepover safety and establishing a baseline of security before putting your child into any situation. One of the ways I like to approach this is to remind myself that any parent who wants to ensure the well-being and safety of their child and any of their child's friends at a sleepover would be willing and understanding to answer a few questions. They would want you to feel safe dropping your child off at their home for a sleepover. So the first step in parent-to-parent comms is to lead with the general stats about CSA and your approach to sex education and body safety education. Then just be honest with them and share with them that you are concerned about their safety and well-being at their first sleepover. And then lastly, ask them a few questions. I've been following Rosalia Rivera from Consent Parenting for a long time, and she has a PDF letter that you can just send to the parent of the sleepover. And in that letter, here are the following questions. Who currently lives in your home? Please list all the individuals who live or are temporarily living there. Do any of your children have access to online devices in closed rooms or only in public parts of the home? Does your family have a media safety agreement, and do any of your kids have access to online gaming with chat options? What will the sleeping arrangements be? Now, if you are uncomfortable asking these questions directly to the parent, then sending this letter is a good option. If you're uncomfortable sending this letter, then you can adapt it and write the questions in an email or text. If you're uncomfortable asking these specific questions via text, then ask the questions using your own words. If you are still feeling uncomfortable sending your own words via text, then asking relevant questions to a parent who will be taking care of your child overnight seems to be a boundary that you are uncomfortable setting. I would highly encourage you to figure out why that is the case before you send your child to their first sleepover. Because if you are uncomfortable before the sleepover ever begins, imagine what your anxiety might be during the actual sleepover. If you want to link to Rosalia's PDF for these sleepover questions, it's linked in the description, as well as my adaptation of these questions, which are: who are the other adults and children that will be staying at your home during the sleepover? How many devices in your home are connected to the internet? Do your kids have unlimited access to these devices? Will you be turning off the Wi-Fi overnight so that the kids can't unintentionally access age-inappropriate websites? I've found a lot of success using this approach with parents, sharing my general concern around the stats of CSA and aiming to reduce the risks of exposure to inappropriate materials online so that all of our kids can have a safe and fun experience at the sleepover. The parents all tend to agree because we all want our kids to feel safe and comfortable during any sleepover. So then by asking the question, will you be turning the Wi-Fi off overnight? And they say, well, no, I never really thought of that. It gives me the chance to explain that it has its benefits and that there are kids who do know about explicit sites, and having a sleepover may be an opportunity for them to share their knowledge with their friends. This isn't uncommon. This has happened in schools on school-issued devices where 8-year-olds have searched up online adult websites. So if they're leaning towards not turning off the Wi-Fi, I usually say to them, that's not a problem. If it's okay with you, can my child still attend the party until 10 p.m. and then I will swing by and pick them up. This way I can still uphold my boundary. The next one is exit strategy skill building. So what you're doing here is you're teaching your child what to actually do if they begin to feel unsafe at a sleepover. You've been telling them throughout the primary and intermediate age that their body is theirs. Their genitals are theirs. Nobody can touch their genitals and they cannot touch another person's genitals, and children do not have sex. Now you are telling them that if this was to happen at a sleepover, that is never okay. They have to leave the situation, go to a phone, call you, and say, I'm not okay. This is an exit strategy and a skill that they're developing. By reiterating the simplicity of it, your kid will hopefully remember what to do and say if this unfortunate situation was ever to arise. Now, clearly, this is part of skill building if the situation is someone physically assaulting the child. But what if it is unintentionally or intentionally viewing porn? For many parents, if their kid is under 10 years old, they have most likely not had a porn talk because technically it's not age appropriate. However, there are some statistics of a child being exposed to online porn unintentionally as a part of their grooming by a child sexual abuser. I want you to know that you do not need to go into a detailed explanation of what online porn is to your 7-year-old. You can let them know something to the effect of, there are things on the internet and on TV that are only intended for adults to watch. And this is why you don't have your own phone or your own TV or your own tablet yet. So if you are at a friend's house or a sleepover and you see something on TV or a computer, even if it's by accident, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, tell me. You won't be in trouble because not everything on screens, TV screens, computer screens, phone and tablet screens are intended for children to see. Now, if you've gotten to this point, the boundaries that you've put in place are about to be tested. The actual sleepover is about to happen. What should you do? What should you say before leaving your child at the sleepover? Do you need to repeat everything about body safety and sex education just before you drop them off? No, you don't have to do that. A simple statement goes a long way, saying something like, sleepovers are meant to be fun. If you are feeling uncomfortable between now and tomorrow morning when I come to pick you up, so-and-so's mom has my phone number. Just call me and let me know that you're not okay. And so now that brings me all the way back to the 3 camps of parents that I talked about in the beginning. Which parent would you say you are? Or have you changed your mind watching this video? Let me know in the comments. If your aim is to find a way to ensure that your child remains safe at a sleepover, I want you to take comfort in the fact that setting up these boundaries is a harm reduction approach. Sleepovers are meant to be fun, but it can also put your child in a vulnerable situation. I hope this video is giving you some food for thought on whether or not your child is ready to attend their first sleepover. Don't forget to grab your Sex Talk Starter Pack or check out the free lesson of Top Talks. The link is in the description.